And I'm talking with the Chief Minister, and really looking to head to the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, but clearly not from your point of view. A massive change in the structure of government, as I understand it anyway. It's billed as a significant change.
This is the biggest change in government probably since the ministerial system came in 1987. It's not just reallocating responsibilities between departments, it's restructuring departments, and in particular the role of the centre by establishing the new Cabinet Office with the new Minister of Policy and Reform, an enhanced support team around the Chief Secretary, and greater support for the Chief Minister as well, in terms of the ability to develop new strategy, new policy, and to drive forward change right across government.
Like any change, though, it's going to have its moments, isn't it? Getting it all fitting in correctly.
Yes, it's the public itself won't notice any difference. Externally, there won't be probably any noticeable change, but internally, there have been already quite a few changes to staffing arrangements across government, because although the centre is the one that's most affected, we of course are dropping one department. DCCL will no longer exist. The Department of Health and Social Care are being re-merged. Social Security is moving to Treasury, and the new Manx Utilities Authority kicks in as well. But the big changes really will come around health. There are already some major personnel changes in that department, new ministers in place. We have put in train at least a new management structure for the hospital, so that the health above all will be the one areas where big changes will take place, and the staff clearly are going to be very unsettled by these changes until they bed in.
On that, I mean, 3 major people have taken early retirement, or in one case just retirement. I mean, there's lots of implications in people saying things, but what do you have to say about this? I mean, is this a new broom and a sweeping away and a new start?
Well, clearly there are changes. The old Department of Health and the old separate Department of Social Care will be brought together, so we only need one chief executive. So already a post will go. So the incumbent decided to take early retirement. A couple of other changes have been identified there. They both want to take voluntary redundancy as well, ahead of the major changes which are needed. So that gives us an opportunity to put a whole new management structure in the Department of Health, alongside the new management and separate management structure for the hospital. So it will be a period of quite radical change for the provision of health, but ultimately I think a refreshed management structure and a more streamlined process to ensure the protection of the services for our people for health.
Because I mean, you got involved last year when you went in there. I mean, you weren't happy. You clearly said you saw things that probably weren't right. Should people be able to have confidence now?
Yes, the Chief Secretary and myself spent a lot of time last summer talking to staff at every level in the hospital, from senior management right down to the porters virtually. It's clear there were a lot of problems to be dealt with. We have worked hard over the last 9 months to start to implement many of these changes. We brought Beamans in, the management consultants, to help us put a structure together, a more effective structure, we think, in the hospital itself. That will come into being very shortly. And overall, there was a recognition that radical change was needed. And I believe now we've started that process. It'll take a few months before it's all settled in properly. But I believe at the end of that process, we'll have a far more effective and efficient delivery mechanism of high-quality healthcare for our people.
And there's now more routes for people to whistleblow, I suppose, are there, if things do go off the measure, that people can alert you or somebody?
Yes, I hope that will continue, but we are, of course, as part of the restructuring of the hospital management, setting up a management board which will be largely made up of lay people who will have a direct influence over the operation of the hospital. So for the first time in quite some time, there will be external validation of what goes on in the department, alongside a new managing director of the hospital as separate from the Department of Health. So I believe these new processes will, I hope, restore confidence in the hospital for the future, and will encourage people, where there are further problems identified, to come forward and let us know.
Okay. Consultants is always an issue that we come across with this vast amount of money that's going out. And only the other day we've heard in a committee that over £750,000 has been used recently, and it's been taken out of probably an interesting area, the National Insurance Fund, I believe. this has just come to light. I mean, obviously you might know about it, but the public didn't know about it. Should we be concerned?
No, I don't think so in this case. Members knew about it. It's something which happens from time to time. It's a review of the National Insurance Fund, and of course National Insurance makes considerably contribution to the health provision, social care benefits in some areas. It's just a periodic update. I think in the past this is the way it's always been funded.
It just seems a lot of money though, £750 million for some consultants. You're quite happy with that?
I'm assured that this is value for money. The National Insurance Fund is a fund of, I think it's over 600 million now that we have in that fund. We have to be sure that the projections forward that enable us to keep that fund topped up are accurate. We need to get the right assessments, and we need to respond to the advice that we get to that. So it is expensive. It certainly sounds expensive, but I'm assured that those figures are appropriate, and members were kept informed that these changes were underway.
I've been here for a couple of weeks in China. Then last week there wasn't a meeting, but I mean, quickly, just China. You're very happy with how it all went?
Yes, China was a great success, much better than I could have hoped for. I think really, it wasn't just a political visit. We also had a number of business people with us. We were in Beijing, Tianjin, and then Shanghai for the last day. Very, very intensive few days of meetings. But I think it's been a very, very worthwhile. We've met political leaders, we've met regulators, business people. We've met the mayor of Tianjin, the vice mayor of Tianjin, the vice mayor of Shanghai, other key people, and the response we've had has been very, very positive. The business community that travelled with us reckon it's the most successful roadshow they've ever been on. They've had quite a number of new contacts, and already I think next week the first Chinese visitors to the Isle of Man from that visit will arrive on our shores to talk about business opportunities. Okay. So the information we've always had in the past is that it takes a long time to build relationships with the Chinese. It takes a long time to build their trust and understanding. But we've been very fortunate, it seems, that we already have triggered off some early visits to the island as a result of it.
Will we be seeing Chinese banks over here, that sort of thing?
Well, we were talking about that. I mean, again, these things take some time to put together. We've started early talks on it. We've met one of the major banks in China. They are very interested in looking at the opportunities, and I think before too long we'll have one of their representatives on the island to learn a bit more about us. But I think the seeds that we've sown as a result of this trip will take a little while, a year or two probably, ultimately to work through. But we've started the process now. That's the important thing. We've raised the island's profile. I think we had over 90 separate press articles about the Isle of Man while we were there. That's got to be beneficial in spreading the word further. We had 2 receptions laid on by the British Embassy, one in Beijing and one in Shanghai. We had about 250 people at those 2 collectively, all very well connected business people. So those links are now warm. We had a very good response from them all, and we hope we'll be able to build on it now for the future.
Finally, the UK budgets happened. There was probably not as much in there on the offshores as some were imagining. It's more tightening up of regulations. Were you pleasantly surprised on?
Well, I think the one surprise in it was the issue about pensions. I don't think that usually, of course, any UK budget is so well leaked in advance that there are no surprises left come budget day itself. I think they managed to keep the issue about pensions fairly quiet, and we'll obviously be looking at that to see what implications that might have for the island. But by and large, I think, apart from a slight loss of income because of the duty changes, it's not a big surprise to the island. I don't think there's anything untoward in it that we can't deal with.
Were you expecting to be a bit more? That's what I'm saying. There's talk about a bit more tightening of
There's always an element of rhetoric in every budget now which refers to tax avoidance, tax evasion, that type of exercise.
And they are going to commit more money to it, aren't they, again?
They are, but they're starting to run out of steam because there's only so much you can squeeze out of low tax areas such as the Isle of Man. The sort of business that they're chasing now has not been in the Isle of Man for many years. And although they may be using this phraseology to gain a headline in the UK, in terms of its impact on us, it's minimal because that business is already gone. The one thing you always have to remember about a UK budget, though, is to look at the small print when the finance bill comes out. And that's what our people are doing at the moment, to see if there are any little stings in the tail that we haven't picked up on yet. So it's usually a week or two after the budget that we finally get a clear picture of what's being proposed.
Is it always tricky doing your budget before the UK budget?
It is a problem in some cases. In the past, I think the Isle of Man budget always followed the UK because if there were tax changes or duty changes, we needed to know to finalise our budget. We've got to the stage now where our budget for the last few years has always been the month before. That's not really caused us any problems. There haven't been really any major financial impacts of UK budgets on ours, and where there have been, we're able to tweak our budget slightly to allow for that. So overall, it's an interesting budget. The good news, I suppose, in a way out of the whole budget wasn't the budget itself, but it was the backcloth of economic news, which shows that the UK is still growing strongly now. The recovery does seem to be well rooted and well underway. And for the Isle of Man to prosper in the future, we need a prosperous UK alongside us. So in the medium term, at least, that should be some good signs for the island. It will generate confidence, it will generate new business and new opportunities for us, which we are currently capitalising on with our trip to Scotland next week and our new links now to northwest of England, various other opportunities all coming up.
Any murmurings on the VAT agreement? Because we keep hearing that they're still looking at it.
Yeah.
Could it be going back for a review again?
It's too early to say. It has been under review now for some 18 months. The exercise which is being carried out jointly between the Isle of Man Treasury and the UK Treasury through the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, to identify once and for all what the Manx economy generates in VAT. That's coming to a close now, and in the next probably 3 or 4 months we'll have an initial idea at least as to how those figures pan out and whether it will have any impact on the island. It's a concern, but we'll have to wait and see.
So it'll end up like our 20% will be our 20%, and that's how they want to eventually get there, do they?
Well, they want, well, it's in both sides' interest to try and get an accurate assessment of what the Isle of Man truly generates in VAT. It is most unfortunate what has happened in the past, because all the changes about our relationship and the distribution were approved by the UK Treasury, and they've now come back and in effect said they got the sums wrong, we want to look at it again. We have to wait and see now what that review actually throws up.